What's up, everybody? So, today we are going to go over something a little bit different. Normally, I do the overhead panel and stuff. I am going to talk a little bit about Autoland Status Annunciators, or ASAs, on the 7.6. So, just real quick, I want to talk about what the ASA is used for. Okay. The ASA is going to be used for your Autoland status, hence Autoland Status Annunciator. What does that mean? Autoland is usually used during a time where you can't see outside or the weather has gone below, Cat 1 mens, and you got to go into Category 2 or Category 3, and the aircraft basically flies itself to the ground and stops it. So the aircraft itself, the 767, is basically certified to 00. I mean, the airplane doesn't really care what the visibility is outside. It does not matter as long as the radio signals are working for like the radio altimeter, the ILS, etc. So what does that mean for you? As pilots in an operation that has the authorization to land in Category 2 or Category 3 weather, you need to be familiar with how to read this particular gauge. And if you forget where this one's located, it's located right in front of the FO and the captain on both sides. And it'll pop up like this. As long as everything's working correctly, it'll pop up like this. So let's talk a little bit about AWO, or all-weather operations, first. And then I'll talk about the Autoland status. So to be able to land in Category 2 or Category 3 weather, you have to have what's called an op spec, or an operation specification for it. The op spec for landing in Category 2 or 3, or auto landing in Category 2 or 3, is C060. Now, C060 is something you have to create an entire program around. It's something you have to apply to the FAA for, and the FAA has to come back and say you're good or you're not. You need to fix some stuff. When they approve, they basically approve you to do a higher RVR in the beginning, and then as you prove that you can do auto land successfully, then they lower the RVR on the op spec. Generally, you're going to get like 1200 RVR for Cat 2, 600 RVR, or 500 RVR for Cat 3, and then they'll drop them down. So when I'm talking about these ASAs, I'm going to be talking about the lowest possible level that you can get approved for as far as your RVR is concerned. And the reason I'm going to do that is because that's what everyone should be shooting for, is the lowest possible limit that you could get for Cat 2 and 3 operation. So for Cat 2, that's going to be 1,000 for the touchdown zone. I believe it's 6 or 4 for the mid, and then 300 for the rollout. And make sure you check your op specs beforehand, because I don't know the Cat 2 stuff as well as I should, probably, because this airplane doesn't tell you that you're Cat 2. It either tells you that you can land a Cat 3 approach or you can not auto land. So if you're able to land a Cat 3 approach, you can obviously land a Cat 2 approach. But always check your manuals for the most up-to-date information of what your company is approved to do. For the Cat 3 stuff, though, there's two types of Cat 3. You have Cat 3 FO and you have Cat 3 FP. What we're looking at here is an Autoland status talking about FO. So FO stands for fail operational. It's an oxymoronic term because fail and operational should never be together. But basically what fail operational means is that it means you are fully operational. That's the way I like to look at it. Basically meaning that the airplane is completely fine, that there's nothing wrong with it, that you can do whatever you need to for the Autoland. Then we have what's called a Cat 3 FP, or a fail passive. This basically means that something is broken on the airplane, that there is something inoperative on the airplane that's causing the Autoland status to not be fully functional, but functional enough to be able to auto land. And it does change your RVR requirements. For example, what we're looking at, Cat 3 FO. Cat 3 FO means that I can land at the lowest RVR point of 300, 300, and 300. So 300 on the touchdown, 300 on the mid, and 300 on the rollout. And basically, this is 300 RVR. It's hard to see anything in 300 RVR, but that is the lowest possible limit that the FAA will give to a 767. For Cat 3 FP, Cat 3 FP can go to 600, 400, 300. That's the lowest that they'll approve for that. 600 on the touchdown, 400 on the mid, 300 on the rollout. Now, there are some limitations that come along with it. If one of your RVRs are inoperative, you can use one in place of it, so on and so forth. Review the op spec before you get into this kind of stuff. And hopefully, if your airline is approved for these op specs, you will go over it sometime in either your basic NDOC or your initial course, hopefully. If not, review your op specs. C060, C061 are the two that you need to look at. C060 will give you land 2 or Cat 2 and Cat 3 landings, and then C061 gives you auto land capability above greater than Cat 1 minimums or something like that. So anytime the weather is good, you can still do an auto land. You need that one to be able to get approved for the other one. You need C061 before you get C060. You can sometimes get them in conjunction with each other. It's a mess. It really is. It all depends on how you apply for it with the FAA. And everything has to go through what's called AFS 400 for approval or concurrence for you to be able to do these particular maneuvers. Okay, so enough about the op spec specific stuff. I don't really want to focus too much on that. I really want to focus on the Autoland Status Annunciator and what it means to you. Now, realize that the Test 1 and Test 2, those are simply tests. What you see on those tests is not anything you would see in the actual aircraft. They are settings to be able to make sure that the little shutters rotate the way that they're supposed to rotate and that it can show you what it's supposed to show you. I believe Test 1 is like Land 3, no Land 3, and then Test 2 is like Land 2, no Auto Land, which are things you'll never see put together. Now, what we want to look at is we got a top window and a bottom window. They can both have something in them, or they could both have nothing in them. It just all depends on what the setting is and what the airplane's doing. Above 1,500 feet RA, these are blank. There's nothing here. So this top one would look just like the bottom one, because that's when it does its test and makes sure that everything works. The only exception to that is if it's going to be a no auto land situation, meaning that something's broke, I can't do an auto land. It'll tell me no auto land at any point. It can tell me that at 35,000 feet if it wanted to, and maybe it gives me a chance to reset stuff and maybe get stuff to work again. But you won't actually know what category you're in or what land portion you're in until you get to 1,500 feet RA. So at 1,500 feet, this kicks on, and if it says Land 3, that means you are in a Cat 3 FO capable aircraft, meaning I can go to the lowest possible limit that I've been approved for a Category 3 landing. That means that the aircraft is fully functional. And I'll explain what I mean when there's a couple slides here, and then I'll get to what I mean by fully functional. So Cat 3 FO, Land 3 only, and fully operational, meaning I can go to the lowest possible limit. Now, if we go to this, if I get to 1,500 feet and it clicks into Land 2, no Land 3, now I can still do a Category 2 approach. Because remember, this airplane doesn't tell me that I'm Cat 2 only. If I can do a Cat 3, I can obviously do a Cat 2. So in this particular case, this is telling me the aircraft is in what is called a fail passive mode for Cat 3. What that means is one of the systems that the ASA monitors has an issue. It's either inoperative or it's, whatever. It's broken in some way, shape, or form. And I can only do the fail passive numbers in the op spec. And as I said, the lowest that they approve on those op specs for the 7.6 is going to be 600 on the touchdown, 400 on the mid, 300 on the rollout. Now, that's your RVR numbers. We also have this thing called a decision height or an alert height, depending on what you're in. If I'm in Cat 3 FO, this is when I have an alert height. An alert height is nothing more than an instrument cross-check. It's usually 100 feet, maybe 50, but it's usually 100 feet. It's all depending on what the FAA approves you for. But at 100 feet, I would do an instrument cross-check, land 3, everything's good, cool, and the airplane is just coming in to land. Because when the airplane is auto-landing, it does everything. From 1,500 feet to the ground, it does everything. You are there to monitor. That is all you're there for. And I know that that is difficult for some pilots because you are probably a control freak a little bit, and you want to be able to have control of the aircraft. But in this particular case, it is saying that the computer has better eyes than you do. Let it land. So it's coming in from 1,500 feet to the ground and will actually stop the airplane for you as well with the auto brake system. It'll bring the airplane all the way down to a stop, and then you can click everything off and then taxi in if you can see. But remember, an alert height is different than a decision height, right? So an alert height for here, like I said, about 100 feet, it's going to be an instrument cross-check. Everything's good. I don't have to see anything outside. It could be cloudy, foggy, whatever. I don't have to see anything outside, and the airplane will, make its way to the center line. If I am in this situation where I have a failure somewhere in my system, and that I am in what's called a fail passive, meaning that I have to be at 600, 400, 300 for my RVR, my alert height now changes to a decision height. That decision height is usually 50 or 100 feet, depending on what the FAA approves for. And at that point, now I have to be able to see outside. Now I have to be able to see runway environment. I need to see lights. I need to see the threshold. I need to see something at that altitude. If I don't, guess what? Go around, try again. Okay? Now, for most airlines, what happens is at 1,500 feet, I go into land 3 because that everything's good. And then at somewhere between 1,500 feet and the ground, I may have a fault that'll kick me into land 2. Most airlines will say that you are required to go around. So you go around because now you've got different landing RVRs. You've got a decision height now instead of an alert height. I have to be able to see stuff. There's things that maybe you didn't brief. So the safest course of action is always going to be go around, rebrief, and then come in and land. Okay? And again, this is all based on what your company says. I know there are companies out there that say that if you brief Cat 2 or Land 2, which is the Cat 2 or Cat 3 FP numbers, if you brief those and you go from Land 3 to Land 2, you can continue because they've already been briefed and you already know that the weather that you have is below or above your minimums that you need. Below your minimums you need, whatever, however you want to put it. You're within that range to be able to land. Okay. The only time where you go around for every company, the only time where a go around should be mandatory is when you go into this. If I'm coming in on a Cat 2 or a Cat 3 approach, that tells me that the weather is not very good. That's telling me the weather is pretty bad. Either I'm at 600 RVR or 300 RVR or 400 RVR, hell, even 1,000 RVR, you're still, it's not easy to see. Even though 1,000 seems like a lot, when you're going at 140 knots, 130 knots, 1,000 feet goes by pretty quick. So, in this particular case, if I'm coming down on a Cat 2 or Cat 3 approach, and I'm in Land 3 or Land 2, and it clicks to no auto land, this tells me that the aircraft has too many issues among its autopilots and the systems that it monitors, and it cannot guarantee that it's going to be able to land the aircraft within a certain range between the center line and all this stuff. And you need to go around, and it either needs to be hand flown or you need to divert, because Cat 2 and 3 for most places, Cat 2 and 3 are going to be auto land only. You're not allowed to hand fly them. So if you're in a Cat 2 and 3 environment and this comes up, you need to divert somewhere where you can hand fly it, because that's what this is telling you. So it's multiple faults across multiple autopilots, and I'll explain that here in just a second. So again, looking here, this is everything's fully operational. I can go down as far as 300 if I'm approved that low, and we're good. It will do everything that it has to do to be able to put the airplane on the center line and land. Now realize I can still land Cat 2 this way too, because obviously if I can go to the lowest limit, I can go to Cat 2. This one, land 2, land 3, there's a single fault somewhere that is causing it to where I can still land a Cat 2, but now my minimums for Cat 3 are a little bit higher. They're now 6, 4, and 3, and I've gone from an alert height to a decision height. I went from an instrument cross-check to having to see things outside. And then we get into this, no auto-land. This tells me that my auto-land system has failed. I cannot do an auto-land at this particular time. If you're in VFR weather, there are a lot of airlines that have the ability to just click the autopilot off and continue. But if you are in an actual, Cat 2, Cat 3 environment, you need to go around and you need to figure out your options from there, because this is a hand-flown airplane now. It cannot have an auto land. You may be able to click an autopilot on, and you may be able to fly with the autopilot on, but you cannot do an auto land in this situation. Okay, enough about that. Now let's talk about the systems that the Autoland system looks at. Okay, so the Autoland system has basically 5 systems that it monitors, but it's really 18, and I'll explain why. So FIRES is the acronym that comes up with this. FIRES. Okay, and anybody want to take a guess what these might be? I'll give you a couple seconds. No? Okay. So the first one, F, that's going to be flight control computers. That's what that's going to stand for. So flight control computers, and then we've got ILS and IRS. So that's why that one stands for 2. And remember, we've got 3 of all these systems. So I've got 3 flight control computers, 3 ILSs, 3 IRSs. So I'm already up to 9 different things that this thing is monitoring, right? Now I've got radio altimeters. That's another 3. So now I'm up to 12. Then I've got electrical systems. I have 3. I know that if you watched my electrical system video, that we only talk about the left and right electrical systems. There is a third electrical system that's called the center electrical system, but it is literally only there to triple isolate our autopilots to be able to give us auto land capability with these 3 autopilots. That center electric system doesn't do anything else other than operate in our center autopilot. That is it. It doesn't give us power anywhere else. So I don't want that to get kind of confusing, or I don't want that to, to mess anybody up. So there are 3 electrical systems, but that center electrical system is only used for the Autoland system. And then we have autopilot servos. Basically, all the servos that the autopilot uses to move flight controls are being monitored at this particular time. So that is your 18 different systems that the ASA monitors. If we have one failure in one autopilot, that will take us from a Cat 3 FO to a Cat 3 FP. And then after, I could pretty much lose that entire autopilot system. I could, let's say in the right autopilot, I lose my radio altimeter, then I lose my servos, and then I lose the ILSs. As long as my left and center stay fine, I can still auto land. I'll still be a Cat 3 FP. If I lose the radio altimeter on the right, and then I lose the radio altimeter in the center, now I'm no auto land. So it clicks from FP to no auto land. And that's when you would need to go around. Okay? So, again, these are the systems that that the ASA is going to monitor, and that's really everything. I mean, that's a lot of stuff. So if I have an issue with any of these, it's going to degrade me a little bit. It's just depending on how far it degrades me. Now, if we want to look back here, one thing I do not want people to get confused about, okay? And the only reason I say it that way is because I've had people get confused about it. I really need to hammer this point. Land 3 versus Land 2. Land 3 does not mean Cat 3 only. Land 2 does not mean Cat 2 only. LAN 3 means I am fail operational for Cat 3. LAN 2 means I am fail passive for Cat 3. Both LAN 2 and LAN 3 give me Cat 2 capability. And I know that sounds confusing the way that I say it. But LAN 2 and LAN 3 can both land in a Category 2 weather environment. Okay? If you see LAN 2, that does not mean that you are restricted to Cat 2 only. So do not make that mistake, please. There is at no time this airplane will ever tell you that it is Cat 2 only. The only thing that you might have on the aircraft that tells you that you're Cat 2 only is a note in the log page or a placard that says you're Cat 2 only. At that point, now you have to make sure that you follow the Cat 2 procedures, not the Cat 3. Okay? If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. gsiguybrandon at gmail.com. Brandon at gsigui.com. You can submit a question through our website, gsigui.com. If you are in a situation where you need help and you want to review some stuff, I can also set up Zoom meetings and I can talk to you that way. I do charge a small fee because it does take my time away from doing other stuff like making other videos or working. So I am available for those as well. Just reach out to me with what you want and we can talk about, how much, it might cost. It's not going to be anything crazy, guys. It's just enough to really cover my time is the biggest part of it. I really enjoy doing these kind of things. I really enjoy teaching. I love what I do. But boy, I just can't do it all for free. So anyway, you can reach out to me at those emails. You can reach out to me via the comments. You can reach out to me however you can get a hold of me. I'm more than willing to answer any questions that you might have. Outside of that, there's going to be some stuff in the description if you want to take a look at it. Great. If you don't, I understand. And then always like, share, subscribe, everything like that. Pass this on to anybody you know that might need a little help with their 767 stuff. And I will see you on the next one.